stop. I can't give it up. Headed to the top. Yeah, I'm coming up. I was born to win. You were born to win. Hey, hey.
Top of the morning to you all, and welcome to Build episode. In today's episode, I'm tackling a couple of big tasks. I definitely wouldn't say today because I've already been going for 4 or 5 days working on this and foresee at least a couple more. My biggest task is getting all of this electrical system in and running. It's going to be so good to have the lights working and everything else kind of going. But I would be bullshitting you if I said I'm excited about actually hooking it all up, because the electrical side of the van build is really daunting. You know, I'm not an electrician. And as you guys know, if you saw, I'm putting in two 200 amp hour lithium batteries, and that in itself should tell you that this is not a cheap system. Okay, so we are onto the battery compartment area, and as per usual, I have slightly over-engineered it and overthought it. So this area under the seats is going to be my battery compartment. I'm going to put a partition wall in from here, and I had to make it big enough that I allowed enough ventilation for the inverter and everything else. And I wanted to make it neat, so all my wires are under here. They're all obviously going to be sorted, but it's generally a bit of a game of Tetris in terms of fitting things in without over cramming them that they don't get adequate ventilation. So after I've put these lithium batteries in place, the next kind of most essential thing that's going in my battery system is the Xantrex Freedom XC 2000 watt combi inverter. And by inverter charger, that means that not only can it power all your household devices working as an inverter, but it is also a charger where you can have it plugged in from AC power, as in like a house power, plugged into this, and it will convert that and charge your batteries with it. So this bad boy, which I showed you at the start of the video, is the Redarc Manager 30, and it is essentially, as the name suggests, a manager. It is an all-in-one. It is a DC to DC charger, meaning you can charge off your alternator. It is a solar MPP charge controller, and it can also charge from AC power. On top of all those things, it looks after your batteries to make sure, especially with lithium, that they stay at the right state of charge all the time and ensure the correct input is coming in.
You never have to worry, I'm gonna find you. You know that you, and I'm about to get even. I'm breaking out of this cage, and it's about to get heated. Hot lava and you never have to worry, I'm right behind you. Hot lava and flames, I'm a finish. Stuck in this.
The batteries are ready to go. Let me show you guys. But here is the system in all of its glory. Before I talk you through it all, if I just turn this one on, everything should be a go. Let's see if things are working. All right, so we have 13.3 volts coming in. That's perfect. I have nothing wired up in the fuse block yet, but as you can see, it is ready to go. Let's test the inverter. So this is the remote panel for the Xantrex inverter, and it has turned it on down here, you'll see as well. And that remote panel pretty much just mirrors what you can see down there. And now this is my Redarc Manager 30, and it is good to go. It should be calculating. So if you can see that, apparently when it's first hooked up to the battery, it will say calculating for one full charge cycle of the battery. And that is because it is kind of gathering, because it's a battery management system, it's gathering all the information it needs to know about that battery and its state of charge before it can kind of tell you, okay, this is how charged it is, this is how long it needs to go. And considering that the sun is shining outside, this should tell us whether it's getting some solar input. Look at that. So 19.1 volts of solar. Another easy test. Now, I haven't labeled it yet, but this should turn on exterior light, baby. I think it's time for a bigger test. Because I don't have any power points wired up yet, I have hooked up, this is just a power lead that I'm running. And then here is a smoothie that I prepared earlier. This is a 1000 watt blender. It's actually, I've got a new blender coming, so this might be its last hurrah. Can you do it, inverter? And you can see the voltage has jumped straight up, back up to 13.1 volts. The lights are connected. I've put the fuse in. It should work on a dimmer. Oh, yeah. Whew. I feel like this is a big step forward and a long time coming. It's going to be so nice working in the van with lights. And how do they look from the outside? Oh, they look beautiful. Still want to show you the system. Let's do that now. If you'll indulge me, this took a lot of work, this system, so I'd like to quickly run you through exactly how it works, considering now we know that it is working and it's going beautifully. Okay, here's a quick system rundown. So as you know, starting with two 12-volt SolarKing Lithium batteries, they are hooked up in parallel, which means it stays 12 volt and it's 400 amp hours. From the battery positive, on the positive side, we go to the cutoff switch that turns off power to all my DC appliances, which is really handy. I didn't have that in my last van. And now this is the positive bus bar, and essentially a bus bar, all it does is it moves the location of your battery terminal so you can have kind of more space to put on it. You've just got to make sure you get a high enough amperage one. So this is a big beast. I think it's 275 amps. This big thick bertha here is going to a 200 amp breaker, and that is what feeds the power for my inverter there. Okay, now this positive runs to a 70 amp breaker, same kind of thing, and it goes down to my Redarc Smart Battery Isolator. What this does is it protects your system from over discharging. So lithiums really don't like going below 20%. And this, you can set a low voltage discharge and it will cut off your loads so you don't go below 20%, and it'll click back in once you've got more power again. From there, you notice this red cable going down. That runs underneath and then up through the wall, and it finishes here. And that is what powers my fuse block. As you can see, I now have the fuse in there for my lights. If I take that out, my lights go off. And this fuse block's really cool because it will tell you when there's a fault and it will tell you which one. So that's the one for my lights. No fault, we have lights. And the only other thing on the positive side is this one, and that's what feeds my Redarc Manager 30. Now, the Manager 30, it actually relies a lot more on the negative side. So if you see here, this big bertha coming out of the negative here goes to the battery sensor, or it's also known as a shunt, and that has the negative on one side and the common ground on the other. I have another bus bar for my common ground, and that's where all those are going there. And they all enter the Manager 30 by this port, which is super easy. You just screw them in. And then, yeah, the Manager 30 kind of reads everything that's going on in your system, makes sure it balances it right, and it controls what is inputting to your battery. A really cool feature is that it has green power mode, which essentially means, say you're getting power from solar as well as AC power, it will charge your battery with both, but it will prioritize solar power. So yeah, it kind of prioritizes green energy, which is obviously really cool. And to be honest, I don't plan on using AC power, like power from houses, very often at all. I've got 320 watts of solar on the roof, and whenever I drive, the alternator is also going to charge my battery. So this baby is going to be off-grid. Like, it will be completely self-sufficient. And, you know, in today's world, it's kind of cool to have a vehicle that, or a home that is not reliant on anything else. And that is my system. What do you guys think? Are you impressed? Do you think I've done it terribly? This is way different to my last system. It's way neater. It's way more complicated. It's way more expensive a system than my last one because I went really budget last time, but this time it is for the long term. And just like that, electrical is done, the overheads are done, and I am stoked with the results. Thank you so much, guys, for sticking with me. I hope you got something out of this episode. The electrical I found a little bit hard to film because there was so much sitting around on my ass just trying to figure out what to do. But I am, as I said, very happy that it all works now.